What's up, duelists? Welcome back. Welcome back. Today I've got a banger video for you guys. This is the top 4 and finals matches from Xanadu Games' $2,000 birthday bash tournament last weekend. There were about 70 players in this tournament, and there was a lot of high level gameplay at this event. Not only that, but there was also a high level of new decks built. I know you guys are going to want to see the lists, so if you want to check out the list of these decks, go check out Feel Good Gaming on YouTube. Go give them a subscribe, give them a follow. Check out everything they've been doing. They've been throwing these tournaments, so yeah, give them some love. You know, check out the lists over there, and yeah, the decks are sick. In top 4, the match I was able to record was the Jinzo Gear Town versus Machina Chaos top 4 match. So that's the first match I'm going to show you guys before I show you the finals. It is a very sick match. So on the left we got Omar playing Jinzo Machina, Jinzo Gear Town, sorry. And then on the right we got Tahir, who's playing Machina Chaos, which is it's really cool to see these decks do well because they're just so unique. They're just like cool takes on strategies we've seen before, but just like at a different level. Omar's going to start off with set 2 and pass on game 1. He gets to go first. Tahir sets 1 and sets another one, so another set 2 and pass. So both players starting off kind of slow, kind of feeling each other out, seeing where things are at. I do believe both these guys are actually pretty poppin' modern players. So it's always sick to see like when someone comes from more modern Yu-Gi-Oh, their approach to deck building in Yu-Gi-Oh, their approach to whatever. This is also not the only Jinzo list to have success this last weekend. There is another Jinzo list that actually won a tournament, a PS5 tournament in Berlin this last weekend, and I'm going to be covering that tomorrow. So make sure you guys stay tuned. You're subscribed and all that good stuff, so you can see that other Jinzo list, which is honestly vastly different from this one that Omar has built here. Tahir's going to have Trap Dust Shoot, and so we're going to get to see a good look at Omar's hand. You can see in his hand, he's actually playing Smashing Ground in the main. He's got it's kind of a bad hand because without the Fortress, he can't really make plays. But, you know, one machine in this hand gets going, right? Like one gadget or spoiler alert, he's playing gadgets. One gear frame, one whatever, like this hand just keeps going, one Fortress, it just gets going immediately. So as long as he's able to find that, then he's able to get things cooking this turn. So Tahir's going to take a moment to write down his opponent's hand, and he's eventually going to take the Machina Fortress there. So that's going to be the pretty obvious stakes, the only card he can actually play in that hand. So his hand's a little bit bricked, but you know, he was killing it up until this moment, I guess, in the tournament. I think his deck is, if I remember correctly, over 40 cards because he is playing a large number of different engines in his deck. His draw for turn was actually Green Gadget, so immediately he's able to find something to get him out of this situation, this sticky situation where he's been dust shooted. So pretty brutal dust shoot because now Tahir knows exactly what to play around. He knows exactly what to do, but Green Gadget's not a bad draw because it's the monster stream that Omar needs, and it can also potentially provide for a big turn, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. Omar's going to flip Ultimate Offering, so revealing he's not only on the Jinzo combo, not only on the Gear Town combos, but he's also on Gadget Offering combos as well. So there's 3 different ways this deck approaches the game, 3 different ways this deck can play through opponent's back row, opponent's threats, and I really like this deck. I just love the way it attacks the game from like 5 different angles. It's really sick. Ultimate Offering here is going to be met with some opposition. However, this Ultimate Offering probably would have been lights out because he can go Offering, Tribute, Green Gadget for Jinzo, and then Red Gadget gets him 4 more gadgets, and then he can go another Jinzo, and then the game just ends on the spot because Tahir doesn't have access to his trap cards, and he can't stop the 8 billion points of damage that are going to come across from that Ultimate Offering, plus big Jinzo turn there as well, which is really interesting. Oh, I guess you can't Offering and then Jinzo until you've summoned all your gadgets, but you can, basically what you can do is you can Offering, stack it a bunch of times, like activate it like 3 or 4 times in a row to play around Torrential Tribute, like chain it to itself basically, and then chain link 2, the last chain link, you summon Jinzo off of it basically, so that it doesn't negate, it only negates your next activation of the Ultimate Offering or whatever. I think that's how it works, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Like, hold up, if I go Offering, and then do that a bunch of times. Well, I guess you'd have to summon all the gadgets first anyway, because they can't activate and interrupt. This is interesting. This is something I had not thought about before recording this video. This is very interesting. Okay, hold up. So if he offering summons all his gadgets, there is an opportunity to be torrentialed, because he can't offering summon the gadget and then get the gadget search effect if the... Do gadgets miss timing if they're summoned chain link 2 or higher? Oh my gosh, this is something I'm going to have to look up. Oh, spoiler alert, I have a card pulled up here. When this card is normal summoned, you can add... Oh shit, they do miss timing. So like if you normal summon this card chain link 2 or higher, it misses timing and you can't search. What the fuck? This is crazy. Anyway, basically if Ultimate Offering wasn't stopped, or if there wasn't a Torrential Tribute, it was very likely that Omar was going to be able to pull off some type of OTK here. But alas, there's the Solemn Judgment on the Ultimate Offering. So the OTK is prevented, at least for this turn. So now, Tahir drops to 4,000. Green Gadget's going to attack for another 1,400. And that's going to drop Tahir down to 2,600, which is actually incredibly low life points. A lot of cards at this point can just come down and end the game. Even like Red Gadget Limiter removal is game at this point. So you have to respect every single gadget attack from this point, which is not where you want to be. I'll be honest about that. So Tahir's going to have to commit to the board in some capacity this turn. Otherwise, he's going to get kind of fucked up. I'm not going to lie. So we're going to see a little bit of a think here, because he's in a crucial moment. He's going to brain control target Green Gadget, drop even lower to 1,800 life points. He's going to be able to take Green Gadget. So his hand has some pretty powerful cards. Does shoot Solemn, Brain Control, and Caius here. So, 3 of the most powerful cards in the game, and double Fortress, so he's able to pitch Special Fortress and hit for 4,900. So, on top of basically having the absolute nuts, he's able to position himself to say, okay, this is a 2-turn clock, deal with it or lose the game immediately. Now, he knows his opponent has Smashing Ground, but if he has something like Book of Moon or Compulsory, he can maybe defend his Fortress if he wants to. I don't think you'd want to defend it with Compulsory, but if Book of Moon... even Book of Moon's not great, because you're going to lose a monster no matter what. Smashing Ground doesn't target in this... Well, in any instance. Yeah, so it looks like he's just going to let the Fortress go down to the Smashing Ground. Red Gadget can be summoned to sort of buffer the damage that's going to be dealt, but you're still in kind of dire straits if you're Omar here. You need to find a way to deal with that Caius ASAP, or you're going to lose over the course of the next 2 turns after this. Red Gadget's going to get summoned. It's going to search for another card. I'm not sure what color red searches for. It looks like red is going to search for Green Gadget. So he's going to search for a Green Gadget there with his Red Gadget. Yes, that's exactly what he's going to do. That's exactly what that effect does. I'm fairly certain. Actually, I'm 100% certain that's what Red Gadget does. Anyway, Tahir's going to draw for turn. He's going to pick up DD Warrior Lady. That's going to represent, I believe, a lot of damage. Not lethal, not quite lethal at this point. But it is going to drop... it's going to drop him below like brain control range, I believe. And it's just another threat. So really solid draws here from Tahir, just having like the perfect trap card combination to deal with a bit of a slower hand from Omar in this instance. And Omar's going to check his draw for turn. He's going to think about it for a second here. Deep in the tank. I really like this Gadget Jinzo deck. I think it's fucking fire. It is a little bit unfortunate that he's bricked immensely in this game, but here comes Heavy Storm. This is one of the few cards that Tahir didn't know about in the draw. Gonna reveal a set Pot of Avarice and a set Bottomless Trap Hole, and Omar's going to concede, basically using Heavy Storm to get information for the next game on what his opponent had set. Smart tactical Heavy Storm, smart tactical concession, recognizing that he was just dead on board there no matter what. The DD Warrior Lady can trade with even any set monster, and Caius can attack directly for game. So he's recognizing the writing on the wall. He's like, all right, let's go to sideboarding. Let's go ahead and get this cooking. What am I playing against? Machina, Lightsworn. That guy had the nuts. How do you side against that? Sometimes after losing to someone who opens the nuts, I feel a little tilted. I'm just like, bro, how did they draw so well? There's no way they can draw well that way again. But then you have to think about it. You have to compose yourself, you know? You have to kind of like pull yourself together. Try to figure out your game plan. Lean back on that if you have one devised. One of the cool things about this Machina Chaos deck is it's attacking the game from a lot of different angles. So it's like pretty hard to like side accurately, right? Like you want to side DD Crow, but DD Crow doesn't really do anything against Chaos Sorcerer or Machina Fortress because neither of them start a chain. So that's not very good. They could easily just side out the Avarice to blank DD Crows, more or less. But then there's also the aspect of, like, you have this Caius angle, this hamster Caius angle, so do you want to side in Nox? Well, they could easily just side out their Raikos and their Chaos Sorcerer and then just side in a bunch of stun monsters. So it's just, like, kind of difficult to know where to side. Like, I think one of the slam dunk side cards that most people are siding is Pulling the Rug. That would be good against both Gear Frame and Caius, but it's pretty bad into actually Raiko and Lila. So it just doesn't line up well against, like, some of the other openers. It's just a difficult deck to side against in general. Cyber Dragon, is Cyber Dragon going to be good? Maybe. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Whereas I think the Jinzo Gear Town Gadget deck is a little bit easier to side against. If you have your own Cyber Dragon, it's a pretty big slam dunk. Trap Stun is probably really good. Dust Tornado to stop Future Fusion or Gear Town is probably really good. And then just ways to not die, like Gores if you have it, DD Crow if you have it, to prevent, like, the Future Fusion stuff. Still, though, a very offensive deck and very tricky. It has a lot of tricks. There's some interesting cards in his list. I will say he is playing the card Magic Cylinder. So had he drawn that at any point in the last game, he could have closed the game out by Magic Cylindering the Caius attack. A lot of his game plan that he says in the deck profile video, again, which is up on Feel Good Gaming's channel, is sometimes you just need to find those last few points of damage. You can get your opponent low pretty consistently, but finding the last few points of damage is difficult. So what you do is you just aim to get them low, and then you aim to top deck. There's a couple of different cards, but I'm going to go ahead and skip this pile shuffling nonsense. If I ever play against you and you pile shuffle like this, I would be mad if it was in a timed bracket. That being said, I believe the top 4 was untimed. So, yeah. But if you ever pile shuffle this slowly against me, I will call the judge so fast. I will be like, what are you doing, brother? Please hurry the fuck up. You do not need to pile shuffle and then riffle 18 billion times. Anyway, yeah, of course. Moving on. It should not take you more than 3 minutes to shuffle your deck. That is insane, by the way. But yes, okay. Players getting started. Omar starting off. He's got normal summon green gadget. That's going to search for purple gadget, I believe. Let's see. Yes, purple gadget. That's what green gadget searches for. He's going to offer the deck for a cut. Tahir says, yes, I will cut the deck. He does the 3 cut, the 1, the 2, and then go back to the unmoved initial pile. I think that's an interesting way to handle that situation. I don't think it's the weirdest way, but it's an interesting way for sure. Check in the hands. It looks like Tahir has Mirror Force. He also has Machina Gear Frame. Definitely the better of the summon search cards in the deck because it searches for Machina Fortress and it has 1800 attack. So a little bit more powerful than a green gadget here. One of the most powerful cards you can start with, I think, in all of Edison format. But he's going to walk right into Omar Jones' trap card here, Magical Hats. Now, if you haven't watched the anime, you probably don't know what the fuck this card does. So we're going to take a look at it. It says, during your opponent's battle phase, choose 2 spell or traps from your deck, 1 monster in your main monster zone. Special summon them as normal monsters, attack 0, defense 0, in face down defense position. Set the chosen monster and shuffle them on the field, which is a crazy effect. So basically what you do is you take 2 spell or trap cards from your deck, and you mix it up with one of your monsters in play, and you flip that monster face down. The 2 cards chosen from your deck are destroyed at the end of the battle phase and cannot remain on the field except during this battle phase. So, yeah, basically, I don't know if there's a ruling here where, like, if they can't be destroyed for whatever reason, cannot remain on the field, would they be sent to the graveyard? How the fuck does that work? We don't really know. This card is very cursed for a lot of reasons, but basically what's going to happen is he's going to search his deck for 2 Gear Towns, and then he's going to shuffle it with the green gadget. Tahir's going to try to attack and try to hit the green gadget, and then at the end of the battle phase, one way or another, this Magical Hats is basically going to turn into 2 Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragons. So it's going to be a special summon 2 3000 monsters from your deck trap card here. Incredibly powerful effect. Really, really disgusting, especially in tandem with the gadgets, which you need to keep attacking. So pretty crazy OTK potential. Pretty crazy OTK potential. And if you're looking over at Tahir's hand, he's got Mirror Force in his hand. Mirror Force doesn't really do fuck all against the Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragons because they can't, when they attack, your opponent can't activate spell or trap cards until the end of the damage step, which is crazy. So here comes the shuffling of the 3 monsters. He's going to go ahead and take a look at Magical Hats, probably admiring the artwork, because even after reading this card for the first time, it may take a moment to fully comprehend what the fuck is happening. Only a crazy madman like Kazuki Takahashi could design a card so insane as Magical Hats, but it is a really, really cool card. So he's just gonna roll a die here. Fuck it, leave it up to chance. And he's going to hit a Gear Town. So Gear Town's effect is going to activate. A little bit of a glare there. Sorry, guys. I didn't have the best opportunity to set up the camera in the perfect angle for this match, but we did what we could given the time constraints. He's going to special summon out one of the Gear Gajiltron Dragons. And then, yeah, end of the battle phase. Gear Town's going to get destroyed due to Magical Hat's effect. And he's going to get out another Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon. Unfortunately, it is in his hand, but, I mean, that's a pretty good effect. Special summon, like, if you activate a trap and it's like special summon 3,000 monsters, one from your deck, one from your hand, that's fucking insane. That's actually really good. I had been sleeping on this card a little bit, Magical Hats. I think it's definitely more powerful than I give it credit for. It does make your subsequent terraformings, your subsequent Gear Towns a lot weaker. Omar here reminding Tahir that on this turn he already summoned. So this crazy nonsense has already happened. He says, I was tilted because of the Magical Hats, basically. And that's why he tried to set another monster there on accident, which is totally understandable. He's forced to pitch a defensive Machina Fortress to not immediately die to these bad boys. These 2 not Chimera Dragons, but Gajiltron Dragons. A little bit of a spoiler there. A little bit of foreshadowing, speaking of Chimera Dragon. He's going to tribute set a monster. Now, you only really ever do this if you're going to tribute set Cyber Dragon to contact fuse into Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. And this is a pretty big slam dunk here. You kind of have to have the Cyber Dragons in your deck as the Jinzo player, so you have this edge in the Machina matchups where you just have Cyber Dragons all 3 games. You have to have them for the Future Fusion combo and for the Overload Fusion combos. And so it looks like he's going to summon Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. At this point in time, I think you can safely attack with both Gajiltron Dragons, and you should not actually attack with the Chimera Tech. I know that may seem crazy. I know that may seem nonsensical, but the Chimera Tech didn't get bottomless. Torrential didn't happen. Solemn didn't happen. Obviously, Solemn is the only card that you're really killing here through, basically. But attacking with this Chimera Tech just means you're going to lose your board to Mirror Force. It's just too high risk. There's no reason for you to attack with this Chimera Tech. Just hold your 3,000 monsters, force your opponent to deal with those, and then play accordingly. It's really, really difficult for the Machina deck to deal with 2 Gajiltron Dragons without spending a shitload of resources pumping into fortresses and crashing them. And then at that point, you can play into Mirror Force. But I think there's absolutely no reason to play into Mirror Force here. I think this is a kind of a hasty play. A hasty play from Omar. He says, you don't have it, but in reality, he does. And if you look at Omar's hand, I mean, like, he could have easily just sat there on his 3 huge monsters and been like, okay, deal with this. Your opponent has, like, what, a back row which has not stopped any of the summons or the attacks of the Gajiltron Dragons. You know he has a monster he can set in his hand because he accidentally set it last turn, misplayed and tried to set it, if that makes sense. And then both fortresses are gone. So you know the hand is like, what was it? It's only like 1 or 2 unknown cards to deal with 3 big-ass monsters. I think, honestly, you just say, okay, these 2 attacks got through this turn. They'll probably get through next turn. I'll force more resources out with these cards. And then you can get more out of it, basically. Even if the set monster is a Raikou, you're at least getting that Raikou out of your Gear Dragons. And then you can swing with the Chimera Tech into the Mirror Force, basically. Alas, as it stands, he's going to lose his whole board for no real reason. And he's already normal summoned, so he's forced to pass the turn back. Tahir, going to draw for turn. He draws Chaos Sorcerer. So here comes Pitch Machina Force, and that's going to special summon out Machina Fortress. Pretty solid start here, because now with that open field, he's able to get in 4,000 damage. You wouldn't have been able to get in this 4,000 damage had he not played into Mirror Force. He would have been forced to do something like attack over the Chimera Tech, and then maybe trade the Warrior Lady with one of the Gear Dragons. but that's totally fine. You know what I mean? That's like totally okay. Or maybe set the warrior lady. You know what I mean? Like that's if you're Omar, you're super happy you're just not taking damage at this point in the game. But instead, you're kind of in a position where now you have to play super defensively. The best offense is honestly, or the best defense is honestly a good offense in Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot of the times. When you have a strong attack position monster, your opponent can't ever like retake position and force you to play defensively or anything. I think playing into that Mirror Force was a bit antsy. There was no need to do that. You can just leave the Gadgetron Dragon there. It'll get you much more turns towards finding Magic Cylinder, much more turns towards finding trap cards to be able to blow up the board or whatever. Anyway, he's going to go to main phase 1. He's going to summon Machina Gear Frame. He's going to search for Machina Fortress. So, really solid comeback here. At the very least, he's going to have 5 cards in hand to, I think, Tahir's like very few. And despite Tahir being able to get in that 4,000 damage, he's going to need a lot to be able to close out the game this next turn. He doesn't have lights or darks for that Chaos Sorcerer, so that card's kind of a brick in his hand. So as long as the board gets cleared here, it's pretty good for Omar. So what Omar should do here is try to summon that fortress, pitch summon that fortress, and he totally can because he has a gadget in hand. We know about the gadget that he searched. So he can pitch summon the fortress. He should attack with the gear frame on the DD Warrior Lady, banish both of those, whatever, no big deal. Then crash the fortress with the other fortress. Because he no longer has cards in play, his opponent's not going to get value out of the fortress pop, but you are going to be able to get value out of the fortress pop, and you can blow up the back row there. Alternatively, you could just attack with gear frame into DD Warrior Lady and not attack the fortress at all, and you force him to attack into your fortress and force him to go for that trade if his set is something like D-Prison or whatever. But I still think just like attack is the best play because you force everything more or less. Anyway, it depends on what's in his hand too, of course, if he has ways to answer the Machina Fortress attacking back, basically. But the reason why I like summoning the fortress before the battle phase is Mirror Force is gone. So if he stops the gear frame attack, then you're still looking at DD Warrior Lady Machina Fortress. Whereas if he stops the gear frame attack when you have Machina Fortress in play, you can then crash the fortress into the fortress and pop the DD Warrior Lady and just take your 2 for 1. So I think that, or 2 for 2 because you have to discard a card, but I think it's fine. Yeah, so I think you absolutely have to summon the fortress in main phase 1 to have a chance at like playing around as much as possible. Going to the battle phase first and attacking with the gear frame is not something that you can do unless you have like an additional removal spell. Can't really fully see his hand. It looks like he does have some spell card in there, but I'm not sure what kind of spell card it is. What has he got? He thinks here for a very long time. He decides to go attack with the gear frame first before summoning the fortress. And like I said, I think this play is just a pure misplay. Now that Mirror Force is gone, there's nothing that punishes you for summoning fortress before the battle phase. And if you had summoned the fortress before the battle phase, you could then crash with the Machina Fortress and pop the back row. You saw in game 1 that Tahir was totally willing to set bluffs, like Pot of Avarice, to make it seem like he has more control of the game than he actually does. So it's also very possible that his back row is just a bluff at this point. But yeah, ultimately, here comes Pitch Jinzo Returner, Special Fortress in defense. I don't like summoning it in defense. It's just less damage if he has another Warrior Lady. There's no reason to summon it in defense. It gives him the opportunity to attack over it with Caius, if that's something he wanted to do, or attack over it with another gear frame, if that's something he wanted to do. But it looks like Brain Control off the top for Tahir is going to clutch the match. Chaos Machina going to move on versus Jinzo. Now, I think Omar definitely had chances in this game. I think the first game he just got sacked to all hell, but I think he definitely had chances in this game. Had he just held his position with the Yugioh Dragons, made it very difficult for his opponent to ever put him into that Brain Control range, and had he summoned the Fortress main phase 1 there, I think he definitely should have won the second match, had he just played a little bit more accurately, I think. A really sick deck overall. I'm super happy we got to see the Magical Hats actually do something on camera. And he had an incredible Swiss round. I think he was like 6-1 or 7-0 in Swiss. So the deck is very clearly good. We didn't see it like do the busted shit that it was doing in the earlier rounds. But like I said, if you want to get more intel on their deck list, go check out the Feel Good Gaming. Let's move on to the finals, because this is where that good shit is. This is where that good shit is. Now, if you're a fan of the channel, if you're a fan of E3 Yu-Gi-Oh, and you've been watching me for a while, then you know I upload these 8-man tournaments in the Discord. You know I play these 8-man tournaments almost every single day. So if you guys know about the 8-mans, if you're a fan, right? If you're a real one, if you're a real head, and you'll probably recognize the guy on the left, not necessarily physically, but you'll recognize him because his username on Discord is Treynaldo. And for those of you who don't know Treynaldo, he has beaten my ass several times in these 8-mans with a variety of decks, but mostly with this rock beat deck that is fucking crazy. It is one of the coolest decks I've ever seen anyone sort of like lab and design. The basic fundamental of the deck is you play these cards. I'm going to just pull up some of the main cards if you guys are unfamiliar with them. Fossil Dyna and Gigantes, as well as Gaia Plate. This is the fundamental of the deck. You play these 4 monsters here. The Guardian, the Paki, the Gigantes, and the Gaia Plate. These are like your core monsters. You also play, of course, Grand Mole and Morphing Jar, because there's just a shitload of really good fucking rock monsters. They're all really good. And then you use this card here, Release from Stone. I'm going to just explain it before we get into it. It's like Call of the Haunted, but for a remove from play rock monster, which may not seem crazy, but then you have to look at the monsters you're bringing back. The monsters you're bringing back include Kawakimaru Guardian, which is just an Omni Negate, straight up. So Release from Stone becomes a Divine Wrath. Or you're bringing back Fossil Dyna, which is a Vanity's Emptiness. So Release from Stone can become a Vanity's Emptiness. And when I was talking to him after the tournament, he was like, yeah, Release from Stone is just broken. It's like 2 different, it's like Solemn Strike and Vanity's Emptiness on the same card in this deck. And I'm like, damn, that's crazy. And you have a million ways to facilitate it between Gigantes, Gaia Plate, the Earth Giant, and Dark Calling. So there's just a million ways to get your rock monsters banished, plus your opponent's going to deprison bottomless the shit out of these cards if they get the chance. And you can spam them, and it's just so difficult to play through. I believe he was a 7-0 in Swiss, if I remember correctly. He was 7-0 in Swiss, and he was 9-0 up until the finals, which is fucking nice. That's actually an incredible record. To do that not only with, not to do that in general in Edison format means you got to be cracked with it, I'm gonna be real, but to do that with a deck that nobody else in the fucking world plays is so sick. So I'm really happy I got to capture this on camera for you guys. It was really exciting. Everyone in the venue who was still there was like watching this match, and it was dead silent. Everyone was just like, what the fuck is this? And like it was barely a whisper. It was insane. So it looks like you'll see a Ghost Stardust and an Ultimate Rare Stardust. That's what these players are playing for right now. $2,000 type prize pool situation here. They're playing for a lot of fucking money. So a very, very expensive match on the line between Rock and Machina Chaos. You guys just saw Tahir's Machina Chaos deck. I think it's a really cool deck. I think it's also very creative, very innovative. Starts off with a Summon Doom Caliber Knight, set back row and pass. I like the way Treynaldo here, we're going to go back. Let's look at this body language. The way he says pass, he kind of like flicks water off his fingers at his opponent. Check this shit out, check this shit out. I like the way he does this. I might steal this, pass. He doesn't do the open palm. He does the overhand palm pass. Look at that. He like jabs his hand at his opponent. It's almost like aggressive in a way. I like it. I like it. Tahir's like, can I read this shit? What the fuck does this do? Yeah, he says he hasn't seen Doom Caliber Knight since 2010. You know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding. I think if I remember correctly, Tahir's a modern player, but that could just be because he has the field center that I'm like wondering. He starts off with Card Trooper, which is one of the best cards to start off with into Doom Caliber Knight. Not only do you get the mill 3 for cost, but then Doom Caliber Knight will negate the attack gain, destroy the Card Trooper, and then you get a draw card. So it's just a free fucking +1, basically. It's a really good +1, and he's also going to hit Plague off the mill 3. So a really solid mill 3 and +1 straight off the bat for Tahir there. A strong start. He's going to set 1 back row. I do see the Chaos Sorcerer in his hand. I see that Ghost Rare Solemn Judgment. Looks like he's not going to Solemn Judgment. He's just going to pass back. Now, Treynaldo's got Raikou in his hand. He's using a small Lightsworn engine to also set up his graveyard here. And he's got Charge the Light Brigade as well. So he's going to go Charge the Light Brigade, mill Kawakimaru Guardian, Heavy Storm, and I believe Release from Stone. He's going to say, can I read your Release from Stone card? And he's like, yeah, go for that shit. That glare is really annoying. I'm sorry, guys, but I did what I could. I did what I could to make sure we got this recordings. So yeah, it is a release from stone that hits the graveyard there. I believe Trainaldo just explains what it does. I don't think he needs to hand it over for the read situation. I do see a Fossil Dyna also in Trey's hand. Okay, here's going to come Dark Calling. So this is Dark Calling number 1. This is going to make a 3,800 monster. Now, at this point, both players are incredibly tired. They've both played 9 rounds. Trainaldo is 9-0. Tahir is 8-1. And they just want to get their match over with. We've been at the venue at this point for like 13 hours or something like that. It was a really long tournament. It was just a really grindy and long tournament. And so I understand why he went for this Dark Calling. I just don't think he should have yet. And there's a lot of reasons why. But mostly, I just think it's a little too early to go for it, if that makes sense. I think there's just... Your opponent has too many cards in hand. If you're going to go for this Evil Hero Dark Gaia, the only thing you can do is summon that Dyna alongside it. I feel like that's the only way to realistically, like, get this Dark Gaia to pretty much stick. Otherwise, you're risking, like, pitch Machina Fortress. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're risking, like, that's pretty much it. But, I mean, I think summoning the Dyna, you're also risking Gores, which is really annoying. So I feel like you shouldn't do this unless you're going to summon Dyna alongside it. He decides to go for summon Kawaki Meru Guardian. And while I do think that this is an okay play, I just think that getting the Dyna in play is so much more in favor of what it is you want to do. It prevents the Gores entirely. It forces it. It makes it so you don't have to sack your Guardian. If he does have brain control for one of your monsters, it's like, okay, at least you're not losing like both your monsters to like... I don't know. This might be okay. I think because it's so obvious that Tahir has Gores here, I would go with the Dyna and just make the Gores a non-issue and not have to sacrifice my Guardian to trade with Gores. Whereas I would rather just lock it out entirely and save my Guardian for like a follow-up play or something like that. Brain control is obviously going to be bad no matter what. I also would have maybe considered not using the Calling yet, like straight up. I might have considered saving the Calling, but I think Calling is good when you're going for game. I think it's less good when you're not going for game, because dealing 3,800 here is like, you have other starters in your hand. Like, you have Raikou, you have ways to open up your opponent really easily. I think it's totally understandable. Your opponent passed the turn without setting any cards. I think it's totally understandable for you to go like, okay, either summon Dyna, attack for 12, or just set Raikou, or just force him to play the game. And then once you guys get down to that like lower game state, that's when Dark Calling becomes just disgusting. You forced all his back row, you forced all his brain control nonsense to deal with your annoying ass monsters, and at that moment he no longer has ouch to the 3,800 monster. Here comes Gores, the most predictable Gores in the history of mankind. Guardian is forced to trade with the Gores, which, again, I think you could have just locked that Gores out entirely by summoning the Dyna, but I understand wanting to save or lead with the Guardian if you don't have other rocks besides the Dyna, but I think it's so much better to do things this way, personally. Tahir is going to have brain control, which would have answered the board no matter what, but at least in this case, no, there's really not much. It would have answered the board no matter what. He's checking his hand. You can see a Game 1 Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer in his hand. That was one of his MVPs. Again, if you want to see his deck, you can go ahead and check it out on the Feel Good Gaming. He's going to sack for Caius and just target the back row. And he's going to hit Mystical Space Typhoon. I actually like this aggressive use of Caius, using it before he attacks. A little bit. You don't want to attack and then have a book happen and then be forced to Caius, banish your own card. It's just awkward, you know what I mean? Just something like that. That being said, he could have booked on the brain control anyway, so I'm not really sure. I think I would have maybe just attacked and tried to get more damage. I think it's very marginal. Tahir here asking to read Dark Calling. Now, Dark Calling differs from Miracle Fusion in a couple of ways. The biggest way, though, is that instead of banishing from the field, or the graveyard. It banishes from the hand or the graveyard. So you can pretty easily pull this off, even if your deck is bricked, or if your opponent has Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer in play. And I think the reason he is reading Dark Calling is to see if Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer would lock it out or lock further ones out. And also he's trying to see if he can use the Gaia to make a huge Dark Calling, basically. I think that's why he was reading the 2 cards there. Passes a turn back. Here's Lila. So what I would do here if I was Trey is I would go for Lila Pop. Maybe. I don't know. Hold up. What's in his grave? What's in the opponent's grave? I guess Set Raiko's good. Answers to Caius. That's a tough one. Release from Stone can bring out the Quakimaru Guardian. So, it's just tough. You're kind of boned here if there's a gear frame either way. But if there was a gear frame, yeah, I don't know. Maybe setting the Typhoon wasn't great either. A lot of interesting choices that game, or that turn. Sets a back row, that's the release from Stone, and passes back. Now, the way chains work in Edison format, you have to release from Stone kind of proactively if you expect your opponent to have Gear Frame or Caius or something. But in this circumstance, when his opponent already has Caius in play, that's pretty fucking bad. Because you'll release from Stone, and then he'll, like, he'll just be able to run over the Guardian before he activates any effects. So you're kind of risking him, like, sacking for another Caius or going for his own Lila or something like that on the back row here. You're not shotgunning the release from Stone, and so I don't really like setting it here because you're probably not using it next turn either. So I don't really know if you should set it here, but maybe, I don't know. I think what I would have done this turn is maybe either Lila Pop or set Raiko and just pass. But I think those cards, the Lila, the Raiko, those types of cards, they're your openers. You kind of want to use them before you use your Dark Calling. They can also mill you towards your Caiuses, your Gaia Plates, so that your Dark Calling is just more damage. You'll notice here that Tahir is at, 1,500 life points? Here comes a Mystical Space Typhoon of Tahir's own. It's going to hit the release from Stone, and Trey is going to chain it to get the Guardian in the grave. But once again, I don't know if I would have set it there, because you're not using it this turn, so there's really no reason to set it. Yeah, pretty much. I guess the only way you're using it is if you, like, mill a Gaia Plate off Raiko, and then I don't even know. You'd have to mill a Gaia Plate off Raiko and top deck a Gigantes or another Gaia Plate. But if you top deck Gigantes, it's kind of better for you to not have whatever. Anyway, that Plague that got milled on turn 1 is finally, it's coming to use. It's coming to use here. And this is part of the reason why I would have maybe gone for the Lila. Just so you can clear the back row in the case of him going for this specific thing, where you just make Stardust, and now your Raiko and your Lila are dead, and he still has that back row, which is really unlucky. Here comes Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, and another reason why I would have liked saving the release from Stone, like, he had the Typhoon either way, but the Kaiku connects. Obviously, he doesn't know about Game 1 Kaiku, he doesn't know about it, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, Raiko's going to be a mill 3 here as well, and now Gaia Plate is locked out from Trainaldo off the top, and this game is looking kind of Jover. I'm not going to lie. I just think, like, he had to save Dark Calling, you know? He had to save it. I think just shotgunning it definitely cost him, and not using his resources to kind of, like, break things open in a certain way cost him a lot, too. But what do I know? I don't like setting the Typhoon either. Like, if you're going to attack with a Dyna, you can set the Typhoon, but if you're going to attack with Guardian, then I don't like setting the Typhoon, because you don't want Brain Caius to banish your back row. You want to force him to Brain Caius one of his own cards, basically. Because the only way he's answering Gaia is either Machina Fortress Crash, which you're fine with, or Brain Caius. Otherwise, you just win. So setting the Typhoon is totally pointless there. There's a lot of like different things you could think about, like situations and whatnot, but yeah. He's thinking here about what to banish. He's just going to banish, I believe, the Gaia Plate and the Gigantes. It's marginal at this point. I think the game is just over. It's just over. All right. Set monster, pass. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. I'm just telling you guys right now. It don't matter. There's no coming back from this. Even if he top decks another Dark Calling, he doesn't have the Fiend and the Rock in hand, and he's not going to be able to prevent the damage that came over the next few turns. So we're going to skip forward a little bit. Talk about their sideboarding. You can kind of see as they're going through their decks what kind of cards they got in their deck here. Looks like he's siding in a bunch of trap cards, pulling the rug amongst them. It looks like Tahir is also siding in some purple cards as well. So interested to see what they got. Looks like there's some Smashing Grounds. Heavy Storm Typhoon being sided out. Very interesting that he would side those two cards out, Trey. I'm of the camp of siding those cards out more often than not, especially when you're going first with Lightsworn packages. I think that like Raikou and Lila is like enough back row removal, and Caius as well. So you don't necessarily need Typhoon Heavy Storm going first. They're a lot stronger going second, obviously. In decks like this specifically. I think in other decks, obviously, you want to keep them in. I'll be real, but and this matchup, his opponent is kind of back row light. Like he's not playing. It's not like a set 5 deck. It's a very monster heavy, like Machina, Plague Spreader. You know, he'll have maybe one book or like one bottomless or whatever, but it's never going to be like set 4 Summon Machina Fortress. Good luck, have fun, right? Anyway, moving into the next game, the pile shuffle, the extreme pile shuffling is happening, and yeah, we're back. We're back into game 2. Trey is going to get to go first this game. Looks like his hand has a Super Nimble Mega Hamster. He draws a Caius, a Compulsory in there, as well as, I believe, some spell cards. I don't know which spell cards those are, but this is a pretty easy set hamster, and he gives him the same hand flick pass as he did in the first game. So still confident based off his body language. Still feeling pretty good about the game. Draws for turn. He rips another purple card. I think that's a Mirror Force. Yeah, that's a Mirror Force for sure. Not sure what that trap card is. Too much back row, honestly. Too much back row, but he's going to be able to flip Hamster and Special Raikou from his deck, and that's going to be met with a Solemn Judgment. So Tahir showing that he's like pretty aggressive about using Solemn Judgment in this type of a deck, where he's just like, fuck it, I'm going to stop this play. It's going to be too bad for me. I'm just going to stop this hamster. If he has Caius, I'm going to get fucked too hard. Not going to let him get his free Raikou. Not going to let him get anything going. And that honestly cucked the shit out of Trey's hand. He's looking at a Dark Calling. He's looking at a Mirror Force. One trap card, I think is a Call on it or something like that. But yeah, he's just kind of forced to set one and pass. He doesn't really have any other plays this turn, which is wild considering how many normal summons are actually in his deck that he has drawn so few of them. Here comes a draw for turn. Draw phase, there's going to be a Compulsory Evacuation Device targeting the monster. That's going to resolve. And then Trey's going to activate Trap Dust Shoot here. So he's going to get to see everything. Sahir jokes that he set the hamster, or did he set the hamster? He's like, actually, it was my plague. Haha. Lol. But no, yeah, very obviously the hamster was a card that was set here. And Trey's going to get the pick of the litter, and he's going to be able to take that Super Nimble. We're going to see Plague, Chaos Sorcerer, Sangan, and Machina Fortress. So, pretty weak hand, I think. Pretty weak hand. And given that Tahir has dropped to 4,000, given that he's down bad with regards to his life points, I think it's a pretty easy game for Trey. All he needs to do is just find a way to pop that back row and find a way to activate Dark Calling. So he needs a high attack point rock monster. He needs something like Gaia Plate off the top, and he needs a way to pop that back row. Instead, it looks like he's drawn Return from the Different Dimension. So still kind of braked, not really finding those rock monsters, those critical pieces of his combos, but his opponent's hand is also pretty fucking weak, so he's probably just like kind of chilling, low key. He's probably just like, all right, well, he's at 4,000. I'm at 8,000. He's not really pressuring me. He didn't even attack me with the Sangan because he was scared of Gores. Just kind of fine, ultimately. Like, the more time you have, now that your opponent's at 4,000, as long as you're playing Dark Calling, like, you have inevitability. They have to act. So he's going to summon the Plague Spreader. He's going to attack for 400 and then 1,000. I don't really like this play. I think this play is... It's not bad because you can Black Rose if you have to. But if you were going to play around... If you were not going to play around Gores this turn, then you shouldn't have played around it last turn. What you should have done this turn is just flip the Plague and attacked with only that. If your game plan was to play around Gores, right? It just seems not cohesive, right? To represent Caius at least. And that way Gores would never be dropped, right? And here comes Ally of Justice Catastor. He jokes about not owning a magical android because they're too expensive. Magical android, please, can we get a reprint on that card? It's been too many years since we've gotten a magical android reprint. We need one of those bad boys. Give us a nice one. Give us a collector's rare magical android. I want a collector's rare for every Edison card so I can have a swagged out deck that's all sparkly. Give us a collector's rare. Or give us a secret rare android would look kind of cool. I feel. Or ultimate would be cool, but collector's rare would be a vibe. Alright, so Trey just drawing a shit ton of spells and traps. Double Dark Calling in hand now. He's got Return Mirror Force, and he's got one other card there, which I can't fully see. It's a spell card. I can't tell exactly what it is. It might be Brain Control. Looks like it is Brain Control. Trey been very, very patient. I'm not gonna lie. He sets Mirror Force and he passes a turn back. And I really like his patience this game as opposed to in the previous game. I think in the last game he was very hasty to just close things out. And it bit him in the ass, I'm not gonna lie. I think he should have just like been more chill about it, used his openers the way they were supposed to be used, and then once this game got down to like a few cards each, then drop that fucking bad boy Dark Calling and hit for the last few points of damage. But this game, I do like the way he's navigated. He's been very patient, very slow. He didn't even spend I believe that's a Mirror Force. Here comes Brain Control on Catastor. Yeah, he didn't even spend the Mirror Force because he wanted to convert the Brain Caius play in his hand. I actually like this a lot. I think it is a little bit frustrating, or not frustrating, but brutal if you do get bottomless here. But here comes Caius, and Caius is probably going to go after the monster just because, like, you have to. Like, I feel like you always hit the monster. You're trying to rush down and get your damage here. I think this game he could have been even more patient, as crazy as that sounds. I think he probably could have set his Raikou. He obviously feared his opponent having a Raikou there, but he could have just brained Catastor, attacked the set monster, and then main phase 2, like Caius the back row, or I don't know, I guess if you're Caiusing anyway, you don't want to give him the flip effect, so no, I guess it makes sense to go for brain Caius here. You can't really afford for it to be their Raikou, so yeah, the only reason I'm saying that is because I have the perfect information because the Nimble Mega. Yeah, that makes sense. Brain Caius makes sense here. It just sucks that you can't use your Raikou first, unfortunately. It sucks for him that he has to wait yet another turn, and that Raikou's going to be a very slow wave for him to get back into this game. Here comes Pitch Fortress, Summon Fortress. You knew about one of those fortresses, and now you know about the second one. The Plague can be stacked to make Gotham, but there's really no reason to do that because Fortress can already get over the Caius, and then the Mirror Force is going to get used here. So I do like the patience, waiting a couple of turns to use that Mirror Force until there was something worth Mirror Forcing. And now, Sahir's just in a weird spot where, like, he has a monster he can normal summon. He has DD Warrior Lady he can normal summon. And he has a back row. So he's chilling and he's vibing, you know? He's vibing and he's chilling. He's going to summon DD Warrior Lady. He's going to stack for Plague. I don't really see the necessity of doing this. You know what I mean? I don't really see... I guess it gets a light in his graveyard for Chaos Sorcerer, which he's probably pretty happy about. Yeah, that's why he wanted to do this. A light and the dark is Catastor or Sangan. And here comes Chaos Sorcerer, and that's going to banish the Caius. There's really no reason to summon Chaos Sorcerer in defense. It's actually just a weaker stat line here. I don't think there's a chance that Trey doesn't side in Cyber Dragons. So Cyber Dragon definitely punishes you for putting Chaos Sorcerer in defense, because the Cyber Dragon can just run over the Chaos Sorcerer. I think anything that can be summoned in attack is going to kill you no matter what. Dark Gaia is going to beat Chaos Sorcerer. It switches it to attack. And the Gaia Plate is also going to beat Chaos Sorcerer. So there's no difference between it in attack and defense other than Cyber Dragon, which Trey definitely is siding in if it is even in his side deck. So I think that's a bit of an error on Sahir's part. Draw for turn is Neospatian Grand Mole. So, could have waited even longer on the Mirror Force, but ultimately, I think he's fine. What he can do this turn is he can just set Raikou and be okay. And then just Raikou pop the back row and hope to mill a rock and a fiend. Low key, like, I'm just kidding. Hope to mill a fiend, I guess. Opponent's at 1600. I like set Raikou here. I think it just puts you in a situation where you're not really losing. And then if he takes the Raikou with Goyo, then it gives you an avenue for a direct attack for game, even with a weaker Dark Gaia. So, I think what you should do is you should set the Raikou. And you should just set the return and pass. But, yeah, that's what I would do. That's what I would do. Is I would set the Raikou and I would set the return and pass. There's really no reason to not set the Raikou here. He's thinking for a super fucking long time about this, but the play seems so straightforward. Sahir has no cards in hand. He has no way to really play through the Raikou that effectively. You're still at enough life points that even if he top decks Machina Force, you're going to be okay. He's looking at his cards and he's just like, yeah, gotta set the Raikou. There's really no way you can afford to Grand Mole here. There's really no way you can afford to do that. Raikou's obviously, like, his only way of dealing with that back row, but, you know, you kind of just gotta eat that, you know? Here comes the Goyo. Goyo's going to attack. Raikou's going to activate. And I think here you can also just target the Chaos Sorcerer and blow it up. Actually, target the back row and blow it up, maybe? Nah, you target the Chaos Sorcerer and blow it up. Actually, no, I think... It depends on if you think you're going to mill. Like, what you think you're going to mill. Because you can go on your turn. You can return to out the Chaos Sorcerer already. So I think you blow up the back row. Yeah, I think you blow up the back row. Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. So he blows up the back row, because the return can bring back Caius. Caius can run over the Sorcerer no matter what. There's two very powerful rocks, and Sahir is going to take the Raikou, which I think is a punt. I think this is like just an absolute punt. Like, there's really no reason to take the Raikou. You're just risking a baby Dark Calling killing you out of nowhere for no reason. He's going to pass the turn back. Is Trey going to draw a Fiend this turn? He draws another Raikou. So at this point, you can go set Raikou, but then you do lose to Force if he pitches and specials Fortress and then also attacks with the Raikou first. That being said, I don't think you're ever attacking with the Raikou first when you're at 1600 against a deck that plays Nimble Mega Hamster. So I think you're fine to just rinse and repeat. I think you're fine to just set the Raikou again. You also have that return to stop the last attack. So I think you just reset here. You just set the Raikou and say, all right, go ahead. And you just try to mill a Fiend. And that's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. That's all you need. If he switches the Raikou to attack, you know, he just gives you avenues to come back into the game, more or less. He's thinking very hard. It is the exact same situation you were in last turn. So there's really nothing to think about here. I don't know why Sahir got up at this moment. I think there was... Why did he get up? Oh, he's grabbing his coat. That's what it was, yeah. Grabbing his coat. It was really cold in the venue. I'll say that much. If I do something at this venue in the future, spoiler alert. Wow, he's going to summon the Grand Mole and bounce the Goyo Guardian. I don't think that's the right play, because now you're just kind of defensively returning, whereas you didn't necessarily have to do that if you just set Raikou. Like, you would have been fine if you just set Raikou. But I guess his worry is summon Gear Frame, which Sahir ends up having. So Sahir's going to be able to summon Gear Frame and search for Machina Force, which is a pretty crazy card here. And it's a pretty smart play that he went for the Grand Mole to play around Gear Frame. Because 4 monster... Actually, I think even 4 monster... Okay, let me think about this for a second. Let's say he has Gear Frame, Chaos Sorcerer, Machina Fortress, Goyo Guardian. Raikou in return doesn't stop that and keep you alive, right? No, you go... He attacks the Raikou with one of them. you pop a second one, and return blocks a third one. So you're actually still fine, even into gear frame. He would have to switch the Raikou to attack and attack with the Raikou, which is just a huge gamble. I don't think you would ever do that while you're at 1600 when you have a Raikou and your opponent plays Hamster. I just think that that's just not something you would ever do. So I think what he should have done was set the Raikou. Because now he, instead of getting those 3 mills, now he basically has to top deck a Fiend. And if he doesn't top deck a Fiend or like a Card Trooper to mill a Fiend or a Foolish or whatever the fuck he plays, I don't know what he plays. But instead of that, now he's basically forced to just defensively return and just be in an awkward spot overall. So, yeah, I don't like this. I think setting Raikou is actually the safest and best play. I think you're still in the same spot no matter what with set Raikou there. The only thing you have to worry about is if he switches the Raikou and attacks your set Raikou with his Raikou. But that's just never going to happen, right? Like, he would never risk the game on such a stupid little thing. You know what I mean? When he can just hold his position in a billion different ways. Anyway, return's going to bring back Caius, which he said he's going to go to main 2 and banish with Chaos Sorcerer. Trey almost made a mistake there summoning the Caius in defense. That would have lost him the game immediately. He would have just replayed, attacked over the Caius, then attacked directly with Sorcerer for game because he paid half for return. So, good thing he did not. Good thing Tahir said to. Fuck, I'm losing my train of thought. Good thing Tahir said go main phase 2, banish it before Trey placed it there in defense position because it totally looked like he was going to do that. And that would have been an insane punt. The top deck ends up being Gores, which is game. So, really incredibly lucky draw there from Trey. He's going to fan out his graveyard. He's going to be like, all right, I got 2 rocks. You're at 1600. He's going to just triple check the situation, and he's just going to go ahead and activate that Dark Calling, banish the Gores from hands, and banish the Gaia Plate from his graveyard. The judge is going to take a look at Dark Calling to make sure he can banish from hand. Judge a little bit unfamiliar with the card as well. And here comes Evil Hero Dark Gaia, and that's going to be game 2. So I think a closer game than it needed to be. I think Trey had the initiative pretty much the entire game ever since the Hamster got solemned, but he needed to min-max his chances of seeing a Fiend there. He got kind of bailed the fuck out. I'm not going to lie. I think not setting the second Raikou was just like a huge mistake on his part. But again, these are marginal play errors that after 9 rounds, like, people are going to make mistakes, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm in this situation, I'm probably making similar mistakes, you know what I mean? I'm probably just exhausted. It's cold in the venue. You're probably very hungry. You've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh all day. Like, these are things you need to be aware of, and this is why playing in tournaments, especially larger tournaments like this one, are so much about not only like your ability to play well when your mind is fresh, but your endurance and your ability to play well when you're fucking exhausted as well. So, like, one thing that I think people can, like, work on that would make their long tournament, like, game better is unironically your cardio. Like, unironically, go for a walk every day, or go for a run every day, or, like, do some distance-based cardio, and it will help you, like, just have the stamina for these types of long events to stay awake for them, and to stay kind of, not present, but I guess present's kind of a good word for it, to stay, like, vigilant, I guess, and make sure you're making the right plays in a long tournament and sort of stuff like that. I think that was a really interesting game. I'm curious why he didn't set the second Raikou there. To me, it seemed like, obviously as an observer, it seems like the obvious play because nothing has changed since the previous turn. But, yeah, I don't know. I do not know. Moving into game 3, we've got Trey going second, Tahir going first, and really cool tournament overall. Just really sick to see this deep run with this rock deck. We've seen a lot of the cards kind of carry their weight, the Dark Calling and stuff. The first game, there was some interesting stuff that happened. The second game, I think, was a lot closer, but that Solemn Judgment was too aggressive. I mean, you're probably going to lose the Solemn Judgment to the Caius anyway, and you're probably going to lose a bunch of life points anyway, so you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So maybe you want to consider siding Solemn Judgment the fuck out if you're playing, if you're Tahir and you're playing Chaos Machina on this this side of things, because the only way you ever really lose is if you drop position twice. And Solemn Judgment basically expedites that to if you drop position once. Here comes that turn 1 trap dust shoot. Tahir's had that both in top 4 and in the finals, so really lucky start for him. And he's going to be able to see a hand of Dark Calling, double Caius, Mirror Force, and Return. Almost identical hand to the hand that Trey had on the previous game. One thing I don't like about Return in this deck in particular is how bad it is early on. I think it's like not that great early on. I think Trey should have considered maybe siding the Heavy Storm and the Space Typhoon back in. So much of the last game was how awkward it was for him to have to destroy the back row with his Raikou. I think just having more back row removal and more monster removal and just playing towards like a late game Dark Calling in this matchup is ultimately going to win you more games than it's going to lose you. He's just going to pass the turn without setting anything. He doesn't want to throw away any of his cards into a Raikou. There's really no reason for that. Here comes Flip Hamster, so 50-50'd, but still, like, you don't really want to have your cards set into that Raikou quite yet. Brain Control, probably the best draw for Trey. Here comes Machina Gear Frame for Tahir. And already Tahir's off to a lightning fast start. One of the most insane things about this deck is, like, if you just have Dust Shoot, or if you have the perfect info, or if you have, like, any sort of advantageous position, you just hit your opponent for 6,000. Just be like, all right, good luck, have fun. And for the rest of the game, they have to play defensively against a stacked fucking board that can't be targeted, that can't be outed by Raikou or Caius very effectively, that plays really well into Mirror Force, Torrential, like the cards that answer resolve threats. So I just think that this is like, the scary thing about Machina is just like how quickly the deck makes it impossible for you to play anything but a defense game. And this is showcasing it almost beautifully. I actually really like Tahir's deck list. I'm definitely going to be playing it over the coming weeks. I think it's a really cool take on the chaos, or like having the chaos stuff and the more like heavy Lightsworn and dark package and stuff is a cool take on Machina, because you're just constantly presenting threats every single turn. Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer is really cool. He randomly snipes the Mirror Force with the Dust Tornado. Trey throws up his hands. He's just like, well, what can you do? Raikou's going to pop Raikou. Mills Kaiku, Mills Solemn Judgment, and Mills Brain Control. And Trey says, my other two sets are bluffs. You're attacking, right? And Tahir says yes, and that's going to be the match. So pretty crazy tournament for both players. Both of them ending it at 9-1, and both of them walking away with some pretty insane prizes. What an incredible match. Showcasing the power, I think, of this Machina deck. I honestly want to say that the Machina deck is one of the best decks in Edison format, but that's just like my opinion, man. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many good decks. There's so many cool decks. And part of this tournament that was really cool for me was getting to see other people playing these new and experimental decks, these magical hats, these Machina chaos decks, these rock style stun decks, and just doing amazing with them. Not just like doing well, but like blowing the competition out of the water, like absolutely dominating the field. I think the metagame representation for this tournament was like 20% Vayu Turbo. None of them topped. So it just goes to show that, like, you know, some people can have some perceptions on metagames, but ultimately at the end of the day, what a metagame is just in a format that's as wide open as Edison, what a metagame is just collective bias. And it's reinforced by further collective bias. At the end of the day, if you play a deck that, you know, can make the right plays in the right situations and has opportunities to win, that's really all you need. If you can instigate those situations to win, a tier list or a fucking how good a deck is on paper or how consistent it is on paper is marginal compared to, like, you know, just the very, very fundamental concept of, can my deck do this thing in the way that I want it to, basically. So really cool tournament, really, really happy event. Thank you to everyone who came to it, and thank you to everyone who said happy birthday to me and Evan. And I'm going to be covering a lot of the other tournaments that happened this week, or this last weekend. I'm going to be covering the YCS prize card tournament from Card Addiction with Totagon in the next few days. I'm going to be covering the PS5 tournament in Berlin in the next few days. I'm going to be covering the Collector's Emporium Ultimate Dandy tournament in the next few days. So a lot of top 8 lists coming this week. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Thank you again for all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.